Hi, everyone. I'm Keri Stevens. I'm from the Moody College of Communication. I'm happy to be presenting very briefly some of my interest related to flooding, and I'm going to talk today about flood communication. I have a few slides that I'll share, but primarily I just want to share some of the work that my teams have been doing here at UT Austin over the past decade related to floods. So, first of all, let's kind of take a look at what this huge gap that we have between technical information and trying to communicate to non-technical or even less technical audiences. You know, as technical experts, and my undergrad degrees in biochemistry from A&M, so I think I fall into this camp a fair bit. You know, we often want to just identify good technical solutions and we just need other people to implement it, right? Well, I tell you, the reason I started studying human behavior is it's messy, very hard to put in our models, and very hard to predict. However, one of the big issues we have is we treat our publics as very passive recipients. However, people don't behave that way. As a matter of fact, they usually ignore information that's too technical, or if they don't feel like it's salient. They're often influenced by non-experts. We see that they need to trust the information in the source. And then finally, they're not always rational decision makers. So my whole goal has been trying to transition our thinking about the public and other less technical audiences from being these passive recipients to really active participants in making systems and processes functional and thus our lives better. So some of the things I'll share with you are what my team has developed. This we developed for the Texas Water Development Board in 2021. We actually have a guide for local flood officials that contains a lot of different resources, not just in Texas, but some of the best resources that we curated throughout the US and around the globe. Another thing that my team has done is we did research for the Texas Water Development Board on different user groups that should be targeted with flood communication and visualization messages. All right, so here's the deal with young adult males. Why did we pick this as one of our target groups? Well, they're most likely to drive through floodwaters and die. So we did a bunch of focus groups with them, and I would show them turn around, don't drown signs, and they would literally chuckle and say, well, I'm not going to die. My truck is tough. It can handle this. Now, when I had mixed focus groups with young men and women, the women would kind of be appalled, and quite often they would say, don't you care about your life? And it was usually just met with a chuckle. However, I found something I think pretty insightful, and that is they sure didn't want to hurt their car. So the instant I figured out what they actually valued in this equation, here is a mock-up of the message that we've developed for young adult males, and it's keep your car high and dry. And I will tell you that the message that works the best is insurance is high, keep your car dry, but that's a little too in your face. And I think this gets really close because it provokes people to think about, oh, yeah, I don't want to hurt my car because then I'll have higher insurance premiums. Now, another one of the focus groups that we found for the Water Development Board are new Texans. You know, we have a ton of growth happening in Texas. And one of the things that's very fascinating is if you look at where they're moving to Flash Flood Alley and Harris County. So those are the two big growth areas, and they're primarily moving into our urban areas where we have a lot more high risk for drainage related concerns and then also flash floods in this area as well. My team did a project in the desert, Fort Hancock, Texas, a colonia along the border just south of El Paso. And we went in and we did a little investigating and found that the last time that community was FEMA mapped was 1985. But really, riverine flooding is not what affects them. What's really happening is almost every single year when they get about 2 to 3 inches, the rains hit the mountains. They come rushing down. The arroyos go right through people's homes. They end up with severe flooding. So we help them collect photographic evidence, and their county judge and commissioners are using that to write grants right now and try to get some mitigation and help for these communities. I want to brag on the community partners we worked with because a ton of my work involves the community. And these 4 individuals went door to door in their community and collected evidence from 90% of the people who had been impacted by flooding. Pretty incredible numbers, I think. We've also done work in the lower Rio Grande Valley, where we worked with small business owners and learned how to create materials in a Spanish first format. And essentially what that means is instead of presenting something as English first, Spanish second, we just flipped it. A subtle little difference that can make a lot of difference when you're working in an area where a lot of people speak Spanish. We developed a sandbag story to help them better stack sandbags properly. We developed magnets for the small businesses, and then we collected stories and examples so they could share expertise between each other. So what's next? First of all, I could have gone on and on because my team's done a lot of projects. I'll give you a QR code in a minute that you can access for that. But we are getting an NSF Rapid to study evacuation behavior, flood warnings, flood messaging during this latest Central Texas flooding. And that will start in early August. And my co-PIs in that are from TAC and also Cockrell School. So a really nice interdisciplinary project that I think will yield some very promising results. I do want to quickly say that my work has really been that of a huge team. I have a lot of people that I've worked with all across UT, other institutions. We've been funded by a number of different organizations, many state agencies, federal government, institutes, and continuing to do some really fantastic work. So I really appreciate your time today. I know you're here to talk a lot about technical information, and I just want you to keep one thing in mind. Technical solutions are definitely important and part of what we need to do. But if we leave the people out, our technical solutions are not going to solve the problems alone. So my work is on the people side, but I'm also almost always elbow to elbow working with folks who are doing the modeling, who are working with flood data and on the ground collecting rainfall data, you name it, and working really closely with communities. So thank you all so much. I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and I just want to say I hope you have a wonderful time. Sorry I can't join you. I'm out of town doing field work. Take care.